Mike? I said, trying to sound casual. Quick question. Hypothetically, how would one go about acquiring, let's say, 15,000 gallons worth of Jell-O? Silence on the other end. Then, Gary, is that you? Did you hit your head? 15,000 gallons? Of Jell-O? Like the stuff you eat? Well, technically gelatin powder, then you add water. Gary, Mike interrupted, his voice laced with concern. Why? Why in God's name would you need that much Jell-O? I explained the draining order, the heat, the injustice, the brilliant wobbly solution. Mike was quiet for a long moment. So let me get this straight. The city made you drain your pool, so you're going to fill it with jelly as revenge? Protest, I corrected. Civil disobedience, gelatinous resistance. Another pause. You, Gary, are a magnificent idiot. You realize this is the craziest thing you've ever thought of, right? Probably. So, you in? He sighed heavily. Yeah, okay, fine. But I'm not touching the stuff, and I want hazard pay. Picture this. July. Not just July, but that July. The one where the sun decided to cosplay as a vengeful pagan god, turning the air into a shimmering heat soup. The asphalt outside radiated menace. The cicadas buzzed with the intensity of tiny, angry chainsaws. And the only sane place to be was submerged in cool, chlorinated water. My pool. Ah, my pool. It wasn't fancy standard white plaster, a slightly faded diving board I never used, plastic coping that got hotter than the surface of Mercury. But it was mine. Linda, my significantly more sensible wife, was floating nearby on an inflatable avocado, sunglasses on, occasionally dipping her fingers in the water. Even the dog, Buster, a beagle mix with zero survival instincts, was sprawled panting in the sliver of shade under the patio umbrella. This, right here, was the peak of suburban existence, worth every penny of the property taxes. This is the life, huh? I sighed contentedly, adjusting my own inflatable flamingo. Don't judge. Forget the spreadsheets, forget the TPS reports, just blue. Linda murmured agreement from behind her oversized sunglasses. Just try not to think about the water bill. Or the drought, I added, a tiny cloud drifting across my sunny disposition. We'd been hearing about it for weeks. Brown lawns mandated by the city, neighbors giving side-eye if you dared wash your car. But surely they wouldn't come for the pools. That would be un-American. Pools were practically enshrined in the Constitution, right? Somewhere between freedom of speech and the right to bear inflatable arms? The doorbell rang. An aggressive, insistent ring that sounded less like a friendly visitor and more like the prelude to bad news. Buster, startled from his heat coma, let out a half-hearted woof. Expecting anyone? Linda asked, paddling lazily towards the steps. Nope, I said, already feeling a prickle of unease. Probably just someone selling solar panels or salvation. I heaved myself off the flamingo, dripping chlorinated freedom onto the hot concrete. I'll get it. It wasn't solar panels. It wasn't salvation. It was worse. Standing on my doorstep, radiating disapproval and heat stroke in equal measure, was a man in a crisp, sweat-stained city water department uniform. He had a clipboard clutched in one hand like a weapon, and the humorless expression of someone who derived deep personal satisfaction from ruining people's days. Let's call him Henderson. Gary Miller? He asked, consulting his clipboard. His voice was flat, devoid of inflection. That's me, I said, trying for breezy. Can I help you? Bit hot for door-to-door bureaucracy, isn't it? Henderson was not amused. Mr. Miller, I'm here regarding compliance with Emergency Drought Ordinance 74B, subsection C. He flipped a page on his clipboard. Our records indicate an active residential swimming pool at this address. Yeah, I said, gesturing vaguely behind me. It's pretty great. Keeps the property values up. You want a dip? His eyes narrowed. Mr. Miller, due to the ongoing Stage 4 drought emergency, all non-essential high-volume water installations are required to be drained effective immediately. The world tilted slightly. The cicadas seemed to pause their angry buzzing. Drained? You mean empty? That is the standard definition of drained, yes, Henderson deadpanned. Empty of water, until such time as the Stage 4 restrictions are lifted. But it's already full, I sputtered, logic deserting me in the face of this insanity. Draining it is a waste, thousands of gallons. Think of the H2O. The ordinance is clear, sir, Henderson said, tapping the clipboard. Continued non-compliance will result in significant daily penalties, commencing 48 hours from the issuance of this notice. He detached a form from the clipboard, my official death sentence for summer. You'll need to certify the draining with photographic evidence submitted to the department by Friday. This is insane, I protested, my voice rising. It's over 100 degrees. People need their pools. People need drinking water more, Mr. Miller, he said, his tone implying I was personally responsible for every dry reservoir on the continent. Have a water-conscious day. He turned and marched back down the walkway, leaving me holding the notice like a Dear John letter from sanity itself. I stumbled back inside, the cool air conditioning hitting me like a slap. Linda looked up from the mail she'd collected. Who was that? That, I said, waving the paper, my voice trembling with impotent rage, was the angel of death. For the pool. Linda read the notice, her expression shifting from confusion to worry. Oh, Gary, drained? The whole thing? Look at these fines. It's tyranny, Linda, bureaucratic tyranny. They can't just… Gary, she interrupted gently, but firmly. We can't afford hundreds of dollars a day in fines. We have to drain it. And just like that, my shimmering blue kingdom was condemned. There are few sounds more depressing than a swimming pool pump running in reverse, sucking the lifeblood out of your summer. I stood there, watching the water level slowly, agonizingly drop. The cheerful blue tile revealed itself, then the slightly stained white plaster below. The deep end became a shallow end, then just a damp slope. The water swirled down the main drain like tears down a very large, very expensive sink. It took hours of listening to that mournful gurgle, hours of watching my backyard oasis transform into a hollow concrete shell. It looked naked, vulnerable, like a beached whale skeleton. The sun beat down on the exposed plaster, already starting to bake it. Adding insult to injury, Carol Peterson, president of our esteemed Homeowners Association, and a woman who seemed perpetually offended by oxygen, chose that moment to stroll by, walking her yappy Pomeranian. Fluffy 7, I think. Oh, Gary, she called out, her voice dripping with faux sympathy that fooled absolutely no one. Finally draining that water guzzler, I see. Much more responsible. Think of the community. She beamed, clearly thrilled at my aquatic misfortune. Carol had always hated my pool something about unnecessary recreational water displays. I just grunted, too defeated to engage. She wandered off, humming. The pool finally gave one last pathetic gurgle and fell silent. Empty. My summer, officially canceled by order of the city water department and gloated over by the HOA. I stood there, staring into the abyss. The heat radiating off the concrete felt personal. This wasn't just an empty pool. It was an affront, a void demanding to be filled. But not, I thought darkly, with water. Oh no, they wouldn't let me have water. Fine, I'd give them something else entirely. The next few days were miserable. The heat wave didn't just continue, it doubled down, turning my house into an oven and my backyard into a sun-baked wasteland dominated by the mocking, empty pool basin. I researched pool covers thick enough to hide the lack of water. Henderson's office confirmed that wouldn't fly. Empty means verifiable emptiness, Mr. Miller. I considered painting the bottom a cheerful blue. Maybe from a distance? Linda shot that down immediately. Gary, no. I looked into filling it with sand, creating a giant, depressing sandbox. Too expensive. And what would I even do with it? Drought-resistant landscaping? Basically rocks and cacti. Thrilling. My backyard would look like a budget Mars colony. Meanwhile, the heat was relentless. Sleep was difficult. Work was unbearable. My carefully constructed suburban equilibrium was shattered. I saw Mrs. Henderson, yes, the inspector's wife, small town, watering her prize-winning roses at 10 p.m., shielded by darkness. I saw kids running through sprinklers down the street, their delighted shrieks echoing like tiny insults. Water use, yes, but approved water use, not like my decadent, fun-having pool water. The injustice gnawed at me, the hypocrisy, the sheer stupidity of letting thousands of gallons go down the drain only to bake the plaster into dust. I can't take it, Linda, I finally exploded one evening, pacing the kitchen like a caged, overheated accountant. It's just sitting there, empty, mocking me, while Carol walks around smugly and Henderson probably takes extra long showers just to spite me. Gary, honey, getting worked up won't help, Linda said soothingly, fanning herself with a magazine. Maybe we can get one of those little inflatable wading pools. A wading pool? I stopped pacing. Linda, I am a grown man. I had a 15,000-gallon symbol of achieving the American dream. You want me to sit in 6 inches of lukewarm plastic? The image was too much. My frustration boiled over. No! If they won't let me have water, I'll fill it with something else. Something they can't regulate. Like what? She asked cautiously. Ball pit balls? Packing peanuts? My eyes scanned the kitchen, searching for inspiration. Past the fruit bowl, past the toaster, into the refrigerator. And there it was, left over from Sunday dinner, sitting in a Tupperware container. A small, wobbly block of lime green Jell-O. Jell-O. The word hung in the air. My mind raced. Pool empty, check, jelly. Takes up volume. Fills the void, check, jelly. Not water. Not subject to Ordinance 74B, subsection C. Check. It was insane, utterly certifiably insane. The cost, the logistics, the sheer unadulterated weirdness. What would it smell like? Would it attract bears? Could you even get that much Jell-O? But the image. Oh, the image. My pool, filled not with forbidden water, but with a shimmering, wobbly, defiant mass of gelatinous protest. Henderson's face when he saw it. Carol's inevitable aneurysm. It was beautiful in its absurdity. It was the perfect middle finger to bureaucratic overreach. Linda, I said slowly, a dangerous grin spreading across my face. I've got it, I explained. Linda stared at me, her expression shifting from confusion to horror, then to something alarmingly close to amusement. Jelly, she repeated, testing the word. You want to fill our swimming pool with jelly? Technically, gelatin, I clarified. Mixed with water, yes. But the end state is colloidal. It's a semi-solid, completely different. I was already rationalizing. Gary, have you completely lost your mind? She asked, but her lips were twitching. Probably, I admitted cheerfully. But wouldn't it be glorious? She closed her eyes for a moment. The smell, the bugs, minor details. The cost, the cleanup. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This is about principle. She looked at the empty pool through the window, then back at me, a strange glint in her eye. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I think I would, I said. My first call was to my best friend, Mike. Mike's usually my voice of reason, the guy who talks me out of bad ideas. Mike, I said, trying to sound casual. Quick question, hypothetically, how would one go about acquiring, let's say, 15,000 gallons worth of Jell-O? Silence on the other end. Then, Gary, is that you? Did you hit your head? 15,000 gallons? Of Jell-O? Like the stuff you eat? Well, technically gelatin powder, then you add water. Gary, Mike interrupted, his voice laced with concern. Why? Why in God's name would you need that much Jell-O? I explained the draining order, the heat, the injustice, the brilliant, wobbly solution. Mike was quiet for a long moment. So, let me get this straight. The city made you drain your pool, so you're going to fill it with jelly? As revenge? Protest, I corrected. Civil disobedience, gelatinous resistance. Another pause. You, Gary, are a magnificent idiot. You realize this is the craziest thing you've ever thought of, right? Probably. So, you in? He sighed heavily. Yeah, okay, fine, but I'm not touching the stuff, and I want hazard pay. Operation Jiggle was a go. First problem, volume. 15,000 gallons. Standard Jell-O box makes, what, 4 servings? 2 cups? My calculator groaned. I needed roughly 240,000 boxes of Jell-O. Even Costco didn't stock that much. I needed industrial quantities. My initial searches were comical. Calling Kraft customer service. Hi, yes, I need a bulk order price for approximately 60,000 pounds of strawberry Jell-O powder. Click. Dial tone. Restaurant supply stores were more promising, but still thought in terms of 50-pound bags, not multiple tons. What are you making, sir? One bewildered supplier asked. The world's largest Jell-O mold? Something like that, I mumbled. It's for a corporate team-building exercise. Very large scale. Finally, I found Bulk Chem Gastronomy Solutions online. Their website looked suspiciously like a front for something else, but they listed industrial-grade gelatin powder in 1-ton sacks. Unflavored, mostly, used for stabilizers and thickeners. But tucked away in their catalog, FS colorant additive #4, strawberry red, and AS flavoring compound, artificial strawberry supra-sweet. Bingo, I called. A bored-sounding woman named Brenda, ironically, answered. Bulk Chem, how can I help? Hi, Brenda, I need a price quote for, let's see, roughly 30 tons of your G400 unflavored gelatin powder. A pause. Not surprise, just processing. 30 tons, G400. Destination? I gave her my address. Residential? She asked, a flicker of something unreadable in her voice. Yes, it's for a very large garden feature. Right, garden feature. You want color and flavor with that? Yes please, strawberry. Got it, that'll be X dollars per ton plus shipping by freight. Palletized. You got a forklift? A forklift? My heart sank. No? Gonna need one, or rent a pallet jack and have strong friends. Delivery Tuesday. Click. 30 tons. Palletized. Needing a forklift. This was escalating. I called Mike. Mike, good news and bad news. Found the gelatin. And the bad news? It's 30 tons arriving Tuesday on pallets, and we apparently need a forklift. Mike swore creatively for 30 seconds straight. Gary, where are we going to put 30 tons of gelatin powder? How are we moving it? We ended up renting 2 heavy-duty pallet jacks from a tool rental place. The guy barely blinked when I said it was for bulk landscaping supplies, and clearing out my entire 2-car garage. Goodbye car parking space. Hello mountain range of industrial gelatin. Next problem, mixing. 30 tons of powder needed roughly 14,000 gallons of hot water, mixed thoroughly. My garden hose wasn't going to cut it. "We need industrial mixers, Mike," I said, staring at the calculations. "Like, concrete mixers?" "Are you insane?" Mike yelled. "We put Jell-O in a concrete mixer. It'll set into a 50-pound rubber brick we can never get out. Plus, concrete dust flavoring. Delicious." We debated. Giant catering whisks attached to power drills? Too slow? Renting industrial food-grade mixers? Exorbitantly expensive and likely unavailable on short notice. The solution came, bizarrely, from a pool maintenance forum. Someone mentioned using trash pumps and venturi injectors to circulate chemicals quickly. Could we adapt that? Use pumps to circulate hot water from rented industrial heaters through the powder dumped directly into the pool. It was risky, possibly disastrous, but cheaper than giant mixers. I called a party rental place about industrial patio heaters, the kind used for outdoor events. "Yeah, I need to rent, 6 of your biggest propane heaters, and maybe some high-volume water pumps." "Big party, huh?" the guy asked cheerfully. "Yeah," I lied. "Pool party. Gotta keep the water warm." It wasn't technically a lie about the water needing to be warm. Mike looked increasingly dubious. "Gary, this involves propane, high-powered pumps, 30 tons of powder, and thousands of gallons of hot water being mixed in your backyard. What could possibly go wrong?" "Positive attitude, Mike," I chirped, ignoring the icy fist of dread clutching my stomach. Delivery Tuesday was chaos. A massive freight truck arrived, blocking the entire street. The driver, a grizzled man named Sal, eyed my suburban house, then the garage crammed with rented heaters and pumps, then me and Mike armed with pallet jacks. "All this for you?" he asked, chewing gum slowly. "Big garden project," I squeaked. It took us 3 hours, straining and sweating in the oppressive heat, to move 31-ton sacks of gelatin powder, plus boxes of luridly red colorant and sickly sweet flavoring, into the garage using the pallet jacks. The garage now smelled faintly chemical. Mixing commenced after dark. We hooked up the industrial heaters to garden hoses, hoping the plumbing could take it, feeding hot water into the empty pool. We positioned the pumps to circulate the water. Mike manned the heaters, looking like a mad scientist keeping volatile experiments from exploding. I stood on the edge of the pool, ready to commence Operation Dumpage. Linda watched from the kitchen window, shaking her head. "Okay, Mike, start the pumps! Start the heaters!" I yelled. The pumps roared to life. The heaters ignited with whooshes that singed my eyebrows. Hot water began pouring into the pool basin. "Now for the powder!" We wrestled the first 1-ton sack onto the edge. Cutting it open released a cloud of fine, pale powder that tasted vaguely of nothing. We tipped it in. It hit the hot water and dissolved. Sort of. Clumps formed immediately. "More circulation!" I screamed over the noise. We spent the next 6 hours wrestling ton after ton of powder into the churning, increasingly viscous hot water. We added the red colorant, a horrifyingly bright, almost neon red, and the strawberry flavoring, which filled the air with a smell so aggressively artificial it made my teeth ache. It was messy. Powder clouds billowed everywhere. Sticky red goo coated everything, us, the pumps, the pool deck. Buster the dog who ventured too close and immediately regretted it. One of the heaters kept sputtering out. A pump started making a weird grinding noise. We were soaked in sweat and sticky red water. By 4 a.m. the pool was full. Not with water, but with a steaming, opaque, bright red liquid smelling violently of fake strawberries. "Now," Mike panted, covered head to toe in red slime. "We pray it sets." We shut everything down, cleaned up the worst of the mess under the harsh glare of the porch light, and collapsed, exhausted and smelling like a chemical spill in a candy factory. I woke late the next morning to an eerie silence, broken only by the buzzing of what sounded like every fly in the state. My first thought, did it work? I stumbled to the backyard window, peered out, and my jaw dropped. It had set. Oh God, it had set. My pool basin was filled to the brim with a single, colossal, shimmering mass of translucent, bright red jelly. The morning sun hit it, making it glow like a radioactive ruby. It wasn't perfectly smooth. There were ripples and bubbles trapped within its depths, evidence of our chaotic mixing. When a slight breeze blew, the entire surface seemed to wobble. It was the most ridiculous, magnificent, horrifyingly beautiful thing I had ever seen. Linda appeared beside me, coffee cup in hand. She just stared. "Wow," she finally breathed. "It's really red," Mike called. "Is it solid?" he asked groggily. "Solidish," I reported. "Definitely wobbly and red, very, very red." "Oh God, what have we done?" he groaned. Pride warred with terror in my chest. It was done. Operation Jiggle was complete. Now came the fallout. The flies were the first sign something was amiss for the neighbors. Then came the smell. That cloying, aggressively artificial strawberry aroma began to permeate the neighborhood, riding the morning heat. By 10 a.m., people were emerging, sniffing the air with confused expressions. Mrs. Gable from across the street pointed towards my backyard. Mr. Henderson, the other Henderson, Chihuahua owner, peered over the fence, his eyes wide. Kids gathered on the sidewalk, pointing and whispering. Then Carol arrived. She didn't walk. She power-marched down the sidewalk, her Pomeranian yapping at her heels, zeroed in on my house like a heat-seeking missile of indignation. She stormed into my backyard. Trespassing, I noted, but wasn't exactly in a position to complain. She stopped dead at the edge of the pool deck, staring at the giant, wobbly red mass. Her mouth opened and closed silently for a few seconds. "Gary Miller!" she finally shrieked, finding her voice. "What in the name of all that is holy and permitted by the HOA bylaws is that?" "Morning, Carol," I said, trying for nonchalant. "Just exploring alternative, water-conscious backyard features." "It's jelly!" she screamed, vibrating with rage. "You filled your pool with jelly. It smells like a cheap candle factory. It's attracting insects. This undoubtedly violates Section 12, Unnatural Lawn Ornaments, Section 15, Pest Control, and probably Section 8, Offensive Odors. Technically," I countered, holding up a finger, "it's a gelatin-based semi-solid, and it's contained entirely within my property line. Doesn't violate the city water ordinance." "I'm calling the city, I'm calling the police, I'm calling the health department," she shrieked, fumbling for her phone. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. Officers Miller and Chen again? No, different ones this time. Officers Davies and Rodriguez. They looked younger, less jaded, but equally confused as Carol frantically waved them into my backyard, pointing accusingly at the giant jello monstrosity. "Okay, ma'am, calm down," Officer Davies said, surveying the scene with wide eyes. "What exactly is the problem here?" "The problem," Carol sputtered, "is that. He filled his swimming pool with jelly." Officer Rodriguez turned to me. "Sir, did you fill your pool with jelly?" "Gelatin-based semi-solid, officer," I corrected politely. "The city made me drain the water due to the drought." I showed them the draining order. This seemed like a creative, albeit temporary, solution to having a large, empty hole in my yard. The officers exchanged glances. Officer Davies poked the edge of the jelly mass with his boot. It wobbled suggestively. A fly buzzed past his ear. "Is it illegal?" Officer Rodriguez asked, sounding genuinely unsure. Carol produced her HOA bylaws, but the cops waved them away. HOA regs are a civil matter, ma'am. Just then, a city water department car pulled up. Henderson got out. He saw the jelly pool. His face, normally a mask of bureaucratic indifference, actually registered something resembling shock, quickly followed by fury. "Miller!" he barked. "What is this? You were ordered to drain the pool, not replace the water with confectionery." "It's not water, Mr. Henderson," I said calmly. "Ordinance 74B is quite specific about H2O. This is mostly protein colloid." Henderson looked like his head might explode. The cops looked deeply uncomfortable. "Look," Officer Davies finally said, "as far as we can tell, no actual laws are being broken right now. It's weird, yeah. It smells sweet. But unless it constitutes a public health hazard, our hands are kind of tied." He turned to me. "Sir, I'd strongly advise you to resolve this. Quickly. Before it does become a health hazard." He eyed the buzzing flies meaningfully. They left. Henderson stormed off, muttering about contacting the city attorney and the health department. Carol stood there, momentarily defeated but clearly plotting her next move. I stood beside my wobbly, bright red monument to spite. I had won, maybe, but looking at the shimmering surface, already attracting a disturbing number of wasps, I had a sinking feeling the victory was going to be short-lived, and very, very sticky. The first 24 hours were a novelty. The next 48 were less so. The glorious wobble began to sag slightly in the relentless heat. The artificial strawberry smell, initially just annoying, started mingling with a faint underlying funk as the top layer congealed under the sun. And the bugs. Oh God, the bugs. Flies arrived in biblical plague proportions. Bees, wasps, yellow jackets, things I couldn't identify. They treated my backyard like an all-you-can-eat buffet. A squirrel tried to run across the surface, got stuck halfway, and had to be rescued with a pool skimmer net, emerging traumatized and coated in red goo. Buster the dog refused to go in the backyard. Neighbors stopped pointing and laughing. Now, they just glared. Carol slipped official HOA violation notices under my door daily, citing everything from odor nuisance and vermin attraction to aesthetically disturbing landscape feature. Linda's amusement had entirely evaporated, replaced by a permanent frown. "Gary, this has to go. Now! I found ants in the kitchen this morning. I think they're following a trail from the thing." Even Mike wouldn't come over. "Dude, I can smell your house from my place," he said over the phone. "Call me when you've dejellified." My defiant masterpiece was rapidly becoming a biohazard. My clever protest, a stinking bug-infested monument to my own stupidity. The sinking feeling intensified. Okay, definitely not the best plan. Getting rid of 15,000 gallons of semi-solid, increasingly funky jelly is, I discovered, significantly harder than creating it. Shovels? Barely made a dent. It was like trying to dig through rubber cement. I called pump rental places. "Yeah, I need to pump out, viscous liquid." "How viscous?" "Like really thick jello." "Sorry, buddy. Our pumps are for water, maybe sludge. They're not gonna handle jello." Click. I called hazardous waste disposal companies. They quoted prices that made the cost of the gelatin itself look like pocket change. Apparently, industrial quantities of decomposing novelty dessert fell under a very expensive category. In the end, it was shovels, and buckets, and a rented dumpster that filled up alarmingly fast with heavy, gloppy, foul-smelling red jelly. Mike eventually took pity on me. Showing up in a full hazmat suit he claimed he owned for personal reasons, and helped shovel, complaining bitterly the entire time. Linda directed operations from the patio, holding a bottle of industrial-strength disinfectant like a weapon. It took 3 solid days of back-breaking, gag-inducing labor. 3 days covered in sticky, stinking goo. 3 days of hauling heavy buckets to the dumpster under the judgmental eyes of the entire neighborhood. Finally, it was done. The pool was empty again, truly empty this time. The plaster was stained bright red in patches, a permanent reminder of my folly. The air still smelled faintly, horribly, of decaying artificial strawberries and regret. I stood there, aching, exhausted, covered in dried jelly flakes, surveying the scene. The cost had been astronomical: the gelatin, the rentals, the dumpster, the inevitable HOA fines for the cleanup delay and the lingering stains. My back hurt. My marriage was slightly strained. My neighbors hated me. Henderson had levied additional fines for improper disposal precursor materials, or something equally nonsensical. Linda came out, handed me a bottle of water, and surveyed the stained basin. "Well," she said after a long silence. "Learned your lesson?" I looked at the empty, scarred pool. I thought about Henderson's face when he saw the jelly. I thought about Carol's shriek. I thought about the brief, insane, wobbly glory of it all. "Probably not," I admitted, taking a long drink. "But ask me again next drought." A single, defiant fly, possibly one of the original jelly pioneers, buzzed lazily around my head before landing squarely on the rim of the pool, surveying its lost kingdom. Maybe it understood.